So, the rise of China can be understood as China's meteoric growth from 1978 until approximately 2013. So, beginning in 1978, the Communist Party of China began to institute large-scale market reforms. They began with decollectivizing Chinese agriculture, and then finished with upending the system put in place by Mao over the last 2 decades. So China was also opened up for foreign investment via the policy of special economic zones. In addition, restrictions on private business and prices for state-owned business were greatly relaxed. So, following these reforms, China's economy began to experience unprecedented economic growth. Many additional reforms were implemented during this period, further accelerating growth. In the period between 1978 and 2013, the Chinese GDP experienced a growth rate often in excess of 10% per annum. Since 1978, the Chinese economy has increased in size over 1,000%, a number that cannot be overstated. Through its economic growth, China has also seen immense growth in its significance on the international stage, as its military and economic might has improved dramatically, allowing for significantly greater projection of soft power abroad. Okay, so now let's have a look at what East Asia was looking like before the rise of China. So immediately following the conclusion of China's civil war, China was still the world's most populous country, but it was a broken nation with little international influence. Indeed, it wasn't until actually 1971 that the new Chinese government was even recognized by the United Nations. So in terms of defense, East Asian geopolitics was dominated by an American-led hub and spoke system. So the hub and spoke system is defined by a bilateral defense agreement between the United States and then individual East Asian states, including South Korea, Thailand, and notably Japan. There were also states like Vietnam, which remained non-aligned with either the United States or China, instead enjoying the support of the USSR. A select few nations were aligned with China. These were Cambodia and North Korea due to their communist regimes. So economically, the main player was Japan, followed by South Korea. Okay, so now that we've looked at what East Asia looked like before the rise, let's start have a look at some of the effects of the rise of China, and we'll start with economics. So, one large change of geopolitical order of East Asia from the rise of China is a total realignment of those economic poles we discussed. So, due to China's economic weakness before its rise, it was unable to contribute economically on a large scale to its surrounding nations. This is now reversed entirely, with the Chinese regime being one of the largest investors in East Asia. So, China's economic investment in East Asia takes a variety of forms. One is large-scale infrastructure projects. The specifics of the operation may change, but the core concept is always the same with these projects. The Chinese government lends money to the other country for it to construct a new piece of infrastructure that the recipient country would unlikely have had the capital to construct themselves. There are many examples of this occurring in East Asia, including China's massive investment in Cambodian power generation, the Minestrone Dam in Myanmar, and a large-scale industrial park in Thailand, or multiple industrial parks in Thailand. So, Chinese investment in East Asia is not limited to infrastructure projects. They're simply the most sort of obvious and observable part of a much greater Chinese investment strategy. Many Chinese companies are investing in the economies of East Asia, particularly Southeast Asia. Countries like Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos are seeing massive investment from China in areas beyond infrastructure. Chinese firms heavily invest in technology and power generation industries. Many Southeast Asian countries. Overall, vast amounts of deliberately placed Chinese money is flooding into East Asia. The economic powerhouse that is China, post-rise, if you will, is now the largest trading partner of many East Asian states, in many cases representing a total reversal of the economic alignment of the state previously, as we discussed. China has remained the largest trading partner of the ASEAN organization for much of the 21st century. Now that we've seen what China rising economically has meant for the economics of the region, let's have a look at what it's done for the geopolitics. So it's had a few significant effects on the individual geopolitics of individual East Asian states. Those that accept Chinese infrastructure and other direct investment have had their geopolitical positions strengthened and weakened. So their positions are strengthened in the obvious way that they can now use Chinese capital to better take advantage of their geographic positions and therefore secure themselves a superior economic situation. The superior economic situation inevitably leads to a strong negotiating position with other countries, as well as more money being available for military purposes and soft power projection. However, their position's also been weakened. The geopolitical position has also been weakened, and that they risk becoming client states of China as the sovereignty is perhaps influenced upon by Chinese influence. So this could take the more obvious route of debt trap diplomacy, or the less heavy, or perhaps a less heavy-handed method of Chinese soft power being used in these states. So Chinese influence on policy would weaken the states as interests are favored in, as interests are subverted, not favored, in favor of the Chinese regime. So now if we look at the effects on China unfriendly states, we'll see that for those states that don't encounter large-scale direct investment from China, so we're thinking your South Koreas, Japan, Taiwan, the consequence of China's economic dominance is still significant. Firstly, for states of Japan and South Korea, their economic influence is much depleted as they're no longer the largest economies in the region. Thus, their ability to influence policy abroad has greatly reduced in favor of China. Secondly, and perhaps most significantly, China's economic dominance places these states in a no-win situation. The states have foreign policy goals totally at odds with the Chinese government, such that if the Chinese government achieved their foreign policy objectives, it would be a massive geopolitical loss for these states. So it would seem obvious that the states would want to fight China at every turn in the international arena. However, China's post-rise economic dominance makes this a tricky choice, as these states would suffer huge economic consequences should China choose to punish them economically. So this dilemma weakens the the geopolitical position of these states because they're stuck between their foreign policy objectives and their economic objectives, which are sort of domestic objectives, if you will. So let's kind of go a bit broader and have a look at the effects on the regional order of East Asia. So the rise of China's economic effects have not just changed the geopolitical position, but it's also changed, as I said, the whole order. So Asian states are now seeking to move East Asia from a regional network model to an international model. So what this means is that in a response to the economic rise of China, East Asian states are attempting to bring foreign powers into the region in order to create alternative economic opportunities. So now, so they're trying to bring other people in. So we can see evidence of this by Asian states, including Russia and the US, in the Asian Regional Forum, as well as their continued commitment to the TPP. So indirectly, the rise of China has actually forced a branching out of East Asia into the greater world in an attempt to reduce that dependence on China. Let's have a look now at the military growth of China during its rise. So China has seen a large-scale improvement of its military size and capabilities. Since the beginning of the rise of China, the People's Liberation Army has grown to be the strongest military in East Asia. The PLA now boasts over 2 million active personnel with more than 500,000 reserves. Additionally, the Chinese military boasts 13,500 tanks and 50,000 or more armored vehicles. This makes China a formidable fighting force on home soil. However, China's military power production capabilities have relatively grown even further since its rise. So that's things that projected power abroad, so not just in China's close periphery. So the PLA Navy, that's the People's Liberation Army Navy, now boasts well over 700 total naval assets, including an aircraft carrier and 50 frigates. The Chinese military missile capability is also of particular note, as it has now developed to such a point that the Chinese conventional first strike could eliminate much of the American presence in the Indo-Pacific. So the PLA Air Force is amongst the largest in the world, with a complement of 3,000 aircraft, including 1,500 attack craft and 1,200 fighters. This large Chinese Navy, Air Force, and missile capability gives China hard power production capabilities well in excess of its East Asian counterparts. So this capability will only grow further as China invests in new military technologies that will be too expensive for the other East Asian states for the economic reasons that we discussed in the previous section. Now let's look at the geopolitical effects of that military rise we discussed. So the swift military ascension of China has led to drastic changes in the geopolitics of East Asia, of the region as a whole, as well as for individual states. So these effects for these states that are China-aligned have been largely positive. States like Cambodia, Laos, North Korea, and Myanmar are able to experience the protection of a much larger state right at their doorstep. So these countries do not share values or goals with the global hegemon, the United States, and thus and are more culturally similar to China. So China becomes a very attractive option for them in this case. So a more military powerful China actually strengthens their geopolitical position because they have foreign policy that's similar to China and objectives that are similar to China, and they get to now benefit from China being more powerful militarily. So obviously now the reverse is true for non-China aligned states. So these states include Taiwan, Japan, and Mongolia. They are traditionally US aligned. Or in the case of Mongolia, they're Japan aligned, but that sort of comes out in quite a similar place. So before the rise of China, the United States was arguably the strongest military presence in East Asia, despite the vast distances between the US and East Asia. So that meant that these nations enjoyed a strong geopolitical position as their security was guaranteed by this powerful United States. However, this reversed with the ascent of the Chinese military, as now these states are aligned with the regionally weaker power. So obviously the United States is stronger overall, but within East Asia, it's a weaker power now than China. Militarily. So this reversal has dramatically reduced the security of these non-China aligned states, and the reduction of security has weakened the geopolitical positions of these states relative to before the rise of China. The reduction of security has also been greatest for Taiwan, as obviously Taiwan's security situation is quite precarious with constant Chinese threats of invasion. So now if we look at the effects of China's military rise on the order of all of East Asia, so it's sort of upended the the hub and spoke system we discussed, and it's replaced it with a multipolar regional order. So East Asian states can now either go with the Chinese military hegemon, or if they see lots of disadvantages with the Chinese regional order, they can seek to remain US aligned. So what this has done is split the East Asian region into these groups that are both economically and militarily, these groups that either benefit from China's rise or or are hindered by China's rise. And so that is split them into two groups: a group of people, a group of states who would want to bandwagon on China, and a group of states who seek to balance China. All right, so let's sort of sum up and conclude and see what we've learned from this analysis. So the overall effects of the rise of China in East Asia has been to split the region into two groups. The first are those that benefit from the rise of China through economic boons and greater security, and the second are those that suffer from the rise of China via economic dependency and reduced security. So the interplay between these two groups, the winners and the losers of the rise of China, will dominate East Asian geopolitics in the coming century, as the group that wins from the rise of China seeks to bandwagon for maximum gain, and the groups that lose from the rise of China seem to balance to reduce their losses from China's rise. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, and if you have any questions or anything, just leave them in the comments and I'll hopefully get back to you with a few sources. Thanks very much and have a good day.